Hello guys, welcome to the talk. This is going to be my first Odoo experience talk, so thank you for filling every seat up, and thanks to my entire team for being here. Not going to be stressful at all. So this talk is going to be about the security within Odoo and the risks you have to be aware of whenever you're deploying Odoo. So it is meant for both developers and non-technical people. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about the risks associated with employees and what we can do to mitigate these risks. With this, we can talk a little bit more about the permission system and how we're going to restrict employees even if something does happen. We're going to talk about the third-party applications within Odoo and the risks associated with that. Then we're going to give a little bit more information about how the updates work and the CVE system. Then very quickly we're going to go over the staff lock modes, and finally, because it's Odoo 19, we're also going to be talking about the AI. So, what exactly are the goals of Odoo? First of all, it is to increase the productivity of the employees. So it has to be simple to use, and we cannot just block employees from doing their job, which means that employees are very high risk. They have access to a lot of data. And social engineering within enterprise has been the most common attack factor. So let's say that a hacker wants to get into an organization. They might send an employee a phishing email. Or if you're a parent and you log into Odoo on your personal device and your child downloads some malware, then also your account can be stolen. So with all these risks in mind, we want, of course, to protect you. So we have implemented some solutions. First solution is we have passkeys. As you can see, with Windows Hello, with Windows 11, you're able to log in with your Face ID and your fingerprints. This actually is already standard on most mobile devices. So some people have already used passkeys without ever realizing it. If you ever have to log in with your face, that's actually really secure. This is now also possible since Odoo 18 and 19. It is also possible for portal users to use this one. We also have implemented session rotation. Now, what exactly is this? If you download some malware, all of your cookies might be stolen. In your cookies is your session ID. Anyone with your session ID has access to your account. So malware and a hacker can get into your account, which is not ideal. So from our research, we have found that most types of malware, it's accidental. It is unrelated, it's not necessarily a targeted attack. So what we want to do is we want to rotate the session every 3 hours. With this, by the time that an attacker gets into to look at all of the sessions that got leaked, that got stolen, hopefully it's already invalid, and the attacker it's basically useless for the attacker. On top of this, in case an attacker does get into Odoo, we want to customize the permissions in order to define the roles for each employee. So for example, a normal employee should not just access all the data related to pay slips. This should be for HR only. And while we do have some of these restrictions within Odoo, the permissions are very customizable for your organization's needs. So when it comes to really protecting your organization, we definitely recommend that you talk to an auditor about this kind of stuff. We also have implemented timeouts, which in case like you have an admin user, you might want to lock their screen if they're inactive for like 5 minutes. Because, for example, someone walks away from their screen and all of a sudden everyone can access their laptop. So for this, we have implemented an access control. And so let's say the administrator walks away from the computer, comes back. Now all they have to do is just very simply click the use passkey button, scan their face, and they're back into whatever they were doing. Now, let's say an employee was fired and a new seat opens up. The problem is, this fired employee, you can still see her on the archived employees. So how would we get rid of this employee? Because of course only HR should be able to access this information, not just every employee. Well, for this we need to go into the settings. We need to check the record rules of Odoo, and we're going to create a new one. So what exactly is this big screen? It's a new record rule. They define the restrictions on the records that employees have access to. So main thing, we're going to give it a name. We need to define the model that is associated with that we have to restrict, and then we also need to define what type of access does this apply to. For example, in our case, we're going to set so only active employees are visible. So in this case, you can only read from active employees, and you can only write to them, and you can only create them, and only delete active employees. You can no longer make, write, delete, or anything related to inactive employees. So archived employees will no longer be read from, so they're no longer visible. You can no longer create them, so it's all pretty secure. Now, let's say you want to define, this is a global rule by default, so this applies to every employee. Now you can also define the groups right here. So you can say, okay, HR, they have access. All other employees, they do not. So the customized permission is not necessarily meant for a big tutorial. It's just like, this is possible. So talk to your IT admins about configuring your Odoo instance. And as you can see now, the user is completely gone from the archived section with this simple filter. Now, third-party apps. A lot of organizations, they need third-party applications to do their business. Now, generally, they're not very secure. These get developed by third parties. They don't necessarily know all the security standards that we do within Odoo. And on top of that, the Odoo App Store, it's a very open app store, so it accepts all new submissions by default. So there is no check at the moment for a security check before you can download these applications or publish them. However, the Odoo Community Association has created some very impressive applications, and these are usually really secure. So anything related to the OCA is pretty safe to download. Now, let's say your organization does use a third-party application. Then absolutely we recommend that you contact a penetration testing firm or an auditor that is specialized within Odoo, and that they check all third-party integrations, because these are the most common attack vectors. And let's say you downloaded some free tool, user sees this, they go into the App Store, download it themselves, they can now check for bugs in this app as well. Of course, now for updates. So if you're an Odoo SH or you're an Odoo Online, you will receive automatic weekly updates. So any kind of vulnerability will be immediately patched. But if you are self-hosted or use a partner or anything along those lines, it becomes your responsibility to update Odoo. Luckily, we have a stable policy. The stable policy means that we don't really change anything related to the method signatures, or we don't change anything critical. So if you create a module on top of Odoo with a simple update, it will still keep working. There is nothing should break. However, if you decide to change the code of Odoo itself, then this might not be as simple. So this is why we have a modular system and why we highly recommend that you use it. Now, let me drink a little bit before we go into CVEs. CVEs, they're an industry standard numbering system for keeping track of vulnerabilities. An example of this, it's CVE and then the date, and then a number after that, because there's a lot of vulnerabilities that get released in the wilds. So it's not associated with Odoo. You can go to cve.org and find a lot of CVE numbers. Whenever we find a vulnerability, we will publish a CVE number and send this to all of our partners with an email like this. Now, how exactly do we patch vulnerabilities? Well, we first receive either a vulnerability by an external partner or we find it internally. If we find it internally, of course, nobody knows about it, and we're going to fix it. We have more time to fix it in secret, and everything is a lot easier for us. So we have our own internal tracking tool, which is air-gapped from everything else. Only the security team has access to that. And we're going to work then on creating some patches. Now, depending on the vulnerability, we might need to do an emergency patch on all of our cloud systems. This is also why, if you're hosted on Odoo.online or SH, you will definitely be kept up to date. And some don't necessarily require, but some do. After that, we do hidden deployment in Git. Now, what is the big problem with Odoo? We're open source. So everyone can see our updates, they can see our codes. So it's a lot more difficult to patch vulnerabilities. So in order to do this, we use a lot of obfuscation methods. I cannot talk about all of them, but what we do, for example, is we go into a big commit that is related to the vulnerability, and we change 1 or 2 lines to fix the vulnerability, and nobody notices that usually. It would be a lot of work to find all the security vulnerabilities, so that's how we deploy it. And after we've deployed in Git, we give people a little bit of time to update usually. Because when we start disclosing that there was a vulnerability, people will start looking for it. So after a little bit, we send an email to all of our partners and everyone that's hosted on self-hosted, and we explain the steps you need to take on how to update Odoo, where the vulnerability are, what's impacted, and we also give short description of the vulnerabilities at the bottom. After a bit of time after that expires, we decide to publicly disclose all the CVEs that we have found. We do this by updating the CVE repository, and we publish on our GitHub as well. Now, if you're on Odoo SaaS, on Odoo SH, and you have a problem, usually contact support. Support has access to every single database within Odoo. Oh, of course, this is what we want, because we want to give the best support that we can. But for some organizations, especially the ones in the they're in a critical sector, such as healthcare, or you're in a big company where supply chain attacks become a real risk, we also have staff log modes. This modes require support agents to ask for permission before they're allowed to enter the database. Now, this of course slows down support by a lot, because if any of you have ever posted support tickets, it usually takes maybe a day before a support agent is assigned to your ticket and starts working on it. So with this, if you enable it, you wait a day, you get a support agent, they ask for permission, then they're waiting for you. While they're waiting for you, they're probably going to work on a different ticket in the meantime. So at the time you give them permission, they're already working something else, they have to finish that up, and then finally they can work on your support tickets. So it is definitely not recommended for everyone. Highly recommend you don't do this, unless of course you're in a critical sector or you're a big company. And to activate this, just write us a ticket and we will do it for you. Now, because it's Odoo 19, we have implemented AI. And from a security standpoint, this is very nice, because AI is absolutely impossible to secure. You can create, all AI is, it is just a prediction for the next word in a sentence. So if you, for example, have a document and you automatically sort this, you can write in the document, this is an invoice, this is an invoice, this is an invoice, and keep repeating that. And AI might be confused and think it's an invoice. Now, this doesn't work all of the time, but AI is pretty random, so it will work 1 or 2 times in 1,000. So for sorting documents, not really a problem. However, if you give AI access to the live chat to help people, and you give the AI more tools to help the user, then this can be a little bit problematic. So it is very important to limit the AI tools and what it can do. Now, what are AI tools? Well, for that, let's explain first of all how the AI works in Odoo. You start by creating an agent. You define, does it use ChatGPT? Does it use Gemini? You give instructions on exactly what it is about, and you give it some topics that it can interact with. And these topics, they have certain tools. For example, in this one, you're searching the Odoo database, and you can get the description of fields and all those kinds of things. So the AI has access to all of this, but luckily, it's only about getting fields and not about writing fields. Anything that can be written to, you should consider all of these AI tools public. They're written in code within Odoo, and as long as you consider them public and accessible to anyone, it should be okay. Now, quick distinction. There's difference between AI tools that are used by by the public and the ones that are used by employees only. If they're employees only, you can give them actually a little bit more tools, but the ones by the public, definitely restrict those. So that was it for the presentation. Thank you guys for listening. Now we're going to move on to the Q&A. Thank you guys.
Okay, so we got a couple of questions here.
Okay.
So, for example, here we have a question about SSOs. So
Okay.
they are asking, is there a way to enforce the use of a specific SSO?
So it's about single sign-on, about
Yes,
the
single sign-on.
Yeah. Well, the users you can create users. Oh yeah, right. Do I need to? Okay.
No, sorry.
So you're able to disable the user's passwords by just setting it to empty or just setting it to a big password. And as long as it's linked with an SSO, it will automatically log into this user. So just set a password to the user and it should be good to go.
Okay.
And just don't enable any other SSOs for that user. It depends on which ones are linked to.
Okay. Here we have another one, which would be about the important updates when you send mails to clients.
Yep.
So basically, users are notified via mail, via Odoo itself.
Yep, that's correct. So this is not all for all customers. This is only for the ones that are on premise or for partners. And we give them a big mail saying, yeah, there has been vulnerabilities found, and we explain all of that information in the email.
Okay, still on the topic of these CVEs, for the older versions of Odoo, like for example V15 or even before, if a CVE is found, what is the policy about that?
Well, in the email, you will every CVE has affected versions. So it will say Odoo 15 to Odoo 17, for example. So it's the same policy as all of it. We just publish all the CVEs to all of the partners that require that information.
Okay. Another question here would be more about, you talked about AI and that we should limit it.
Yep.
But the question here is it even possible to have a local AI tool that is then plugged into Odoo?
Right now, I'm not sure. AI has been developed very recently. It was quite fun for security review on that one. But I believe that we're working on that. But at the moment, I believe it's only ChatGPT and Gemini that we support. But it's an integration. You should be able to integrate it yourself, but we're also working on that. So expect that for Odoo 19.1, I think. Although no promises, no promises.
Here, a very specific question about limiting the access of Odoo staff.
Okay.
Is it possible to limit it to staging only and never production?
Unfortunately not. It's either a yes or no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question here. So
Actually, on the previous question, it is possible to create users for the staging and then provide these users to the help desk tickets. That's possible.
A workaround.
That's a workaround, but it's not officially supported.
Yes. Okay, so for record rules, because you've shown them in the presentation, the question here is this part of enterprise or the open core part?
It's part of the open core. Everyone has access to this. And if you enable debug mode and go into the settings, you should be able to find it.
Okay, here there is a question regarding, so the person is asking, if I am self-hosting, how can I be sure I am part of the mailing list for CVEs? I suppose they are by default?
So you are by default. Every contact that is buying a subscription, if your email, it's going to email the person that bought the subscription, unless you set a security contact. So if you are part of an enterprise and you want there to be like a security email, you can ask in help desk tickets to say like, guys, if there's any vulnerabilities, please contact this user and we will set it on your contracts.
Okay. Here, another question again about the AI, and since you showcased here that it is using GPT, the question would be how is the data transferred to GPT from the Odoo database? Like, is there a way to limit the data that you feed the model, basically?
I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. For example, with documents, you give the full document body and document title, because that's all the context you need to determine what kind of document it is. But if you want to limit it, you can always create integration for that, but I'm not entirely sure I understand the question.
So here it is more about if some user info would get fed to the model. Is it possible or not?
You define what info gets transmitted to the AI. So you can define certain inputs and outputs, and only the outputs get, only the real inputs get transferred to the
Okay,
AI.
so you can specify inputs and outputs.
Yeah, so with a chatbot, it's only going to be everything in the chat and all the message histories.
Okay, another question about CVEs, because I see this coming a lot, is how old do we go back? Like how far back do we go for CVEs in terms of versions?
Didn't Fabien make an announcement that we're going to support 5 years of releases?
More like in general, if a CVE is found for
so
any...
Officially, we support all the supported versions of Odoo, which was 3 years, but I believe we're switching to 5 years on a new contract. Unofficially, we also support a little bit older than that, just to give a little bit of wiggle room, but don't rely on that because we don't always do that.
Okay, I guess we are mostly wrapped up here for the questions. So is there a way we can contact you if we want to ask some more questions? Maybe here at Odoo, where can we find you if we want to go further with you?
If you have any questions about, for me personally, you can contact me at brvg@odoo.com. Or if you have a security related question, the entire team will be happy to assist you. We love when people are curious. So just mail us at security@odoo.com and we'll be sure to give you guys a proper answer.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that wraps it up for us here.
Oh, look, I have a bit of time left. That's cool. All right, appreciate it, guys.